Welcome to She Speaks, the Female Truth, where two women navigate the ups and downs of life with humor, heart, and a whole lot of honesty.
Welcome back to She Speaks, the Female Truth. We are on episode 7 today.
Yes.
And we have this beautiful new sign.
We're going places.
We're moving up in the world. Oh my gosh. We're so happy to have you join us again. If this is your first time, welcome. My name is Deborah.
I'm Kathy.
And here we speak all things that mostly our mothers wouldn't talk about.
Yes.
And today we are talking about surrogacy. So let us begin. And first, let me just say, if you don't follow us yet on Spotify, come on now.
You're missing out.
What's going on? There's no excuse.
You've had 6 prior weeks.
Mm-hmm. We expect followers, please.
Oh my God.
And shares. Share it with your friends.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring. And we heart you. We heart your support. So thank you. So last week we talked about infertility.
Yes.
And Kathy, you shared some personal things about your journey with infertility and loss. Yep. If you haven't listened, go back to episode 6. And then prior to that, you also talked about PCOS.
Yeah, and they kind of touch hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it just kind of makes sense for our next episode to talk about surrogacy, because what happens when you keep trying to have a baby and nothing's happening?
Which is common.
It is. And surrogacy is actually becoming a lot more common. And I was a surrogate 18 years ago. Oh. And so I thought, let's share this journey that I had and, answer some questions. If you have questions about surrogacy, feel free to leave questions in Spotify or any of our social medias. Join them, follow them, like them, heart them.
Yes, so join the conversation as we talk about surrogacy.
Yes. So surrogacy, for those that don't know, is one way to have a family if you cannot have children. Yeah. And back in 2004, I believe it was, 2004, 2005, my aunt asked me if I would be her surrogate. She was older, could not have children anymore. And so she's like, hey, would you consider being my surrogate? I knew nothing about it. I was a single mom because I had Hannah already. Okay. Hannah was like 3 or 4. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let me look into it. So I started researching it. And then she decided, oh, no, I don't want to start over with diapers and all of the things. Mm. And so I'm like, okay.
After you already did the research.
I already did the research. Okay. But I really felt a calling, if you will, to be a surrogate at that point. I started researching why people have surrogates, people that, had full hysterectomies, partial hysterectomies, PCOS, endometriosis, a lot of infertility problems, also gay couples. So there's a lot of reasons why people will hire a surrogate. And I use the word hire because what I ended up doing was I went through a center. Okay. The Center for Surrogate Parenting, based out of California, is where all of my research led to them. And a lot of famous people went through the Center for Surrogate Parenting, so it just seemed like a very legit company. Because even though I was going to do it for my aunt, I wanted to make sure we did all of the things legally correct. Yeah. And so she changed her mind, but I felt this push. I literally felt God saying, you need to do this. Not hey, this would be fun. Hey, what are you doing for the next 9 months? There was a literal push, a serious calling for me to do this. I can't explain it other than I literally felt a push. I was called to do this.
Well, it's taxing on your body anyways. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine the vetting process and going through all of the things. Yeah. And it's probably emotional as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you felt called, I mean, that's great that you answered
definitely did. Yeah. I think, so So by the time I was like, okay, my aunt changed her mind, I'm like, well, I still need to do this now. Not I want to. It was like, I need to do this. So I reached out to them, filled out all of the paperwork, and just started going. Hannah was a pretty easy pregnancy. I had placenta previa with her. But other than that, it was a pretty easy going pregnancy. So I'm like, hey, I can do this. Like, no big deal.
You had the confidence.
I was like 20 some
like,
years
why
old.
not?
I was like, what else am I doing the next 9 months? Let's just go. I will say, so basically the process was they sent, I had to create like a scrapbook about myself and why I wanted to be a surrogate. And then in return, these couples that were looking for a surrogate also filled out scrapbooks.
Scrapbooks.
They were literal scrapbooks. Like they would snail mail me the scrapbooks.
The early 2000s at its finest.
Mm-hmm. There were like printed pictures, like people did stickers. I mean, it was a full-blown scrapbook. Okay. It reminds me of like almost like online dating, like trying to match us.
Oh my gosh.
Because they asked questions that were really personal. Like if you end up with triplets and the parents want to abort one because they only want two because of the high risk of a pregnancy, are you willing to do that? So you answer some really personal questions.
That's tough.
And so they want to match you with the right people that have the same values. So it was really nice. I knew that that made me feel comfortable too, because I knew I wouldn't be in a situation where I'd be forced to do something that I just morally, ethically didn't feel right comfortable doing. And so I looked at a couple scrapbooks, and I came across one. I'm mostly Swedish, and this couple I came across, they sent me like 5 scrapbooks, and I'm like, sent them back, gave me more. And I saw this one scrapbook, and it was like the mother was like Swedish, like not like living in Sweden, but I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I knew her.
You felt drawn to her.
I did. And I read their story, and she had difficulties with her first pregnancy and ended up losing her uterus.
Wow.
And so she couldn't have children anymore, and they wanted to extend their family. And so I sent, so then I was like, yep, that's the couple I like so far. So then they sent them my profile and then my little scrapbook, and then they were like, yay or nay.
So you got to pick first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So I got to pick first, and then they are like, yay or nay on me, and they said yes. And so then the next process, gosh, it's been so long, but I feel like the next thing that I remember was meeting them in person. They flew here to Minnesota. They lived out of state, and they flew here to Minnesota. We met in person. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, the best thing I can explain was, like, how do I convince these strangers to trust me? Carrying their most precious thing, like in life. Like how do I could be a smoker, I could be a drinker, I could be a drug addict. Like how do I convince them that they can trust me? And I remember that weight.
They have to have confidence that you are telling the truth,
right,
in all of those answers, and you're not going to turn into a psycho. And that would be really hard.
Yeah.
That would be really difficult.
I mean, I couldn't imagine. I remember Hannah wasn't planned, but I couldn't imagine being told I couldn't have kids. And so it was just kind of like, it just seemed like, I want to do this for you. Like genuinely from my heart, I want to do this for you, even though I don't know you. And I will say, full disclosure for any of you listening, I often tell people, and she speaks the female truth, right? I often tell people that I knew her.
Okay.
Because it does take that pressure off of the stereotype of women doing it for money or, and I didn't want that stereotype. So a lot of times I just say that I knew her.
I think it's really easy for people to judge and think they know a situation when they've never lived a situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and at the time, it was right around, I can't remember when Oprah did her thing, but she did a special called like Womb for Rent. And it kind of gave surrogacy not the best light. Unlike our light. It was very poor lighting. And I remember thinking...
Which is really sad because it is true heartbreak. I know when I tried for 5 years, I mean, I cried daily. like like daily. And then after it worked, I was told, you will never have any more children unless you go through this extreme process all over again. And by the way, you're geriatric already, you're aging, you have a very limited window. So I couldn't imagine the extreme of not even having a uterus. Like that's like signed, sealed, delivered, you're done.
Right. Yeah, you can't undo, you know, there's no like uterus transplants out there, you know. So it was just kind of like I was very sincere and genuine about it. But again, I just kind of, so for those of you that I've told that I knew her, surprise, I didn't. And hopefully you understand why I said it though. You know, just to make it easier, and it just shortens the conversation and move on.
Yeah, but it's sad that people would take a situation that is meant to be like you were drawn to it, you felt it was a calling to really, really help this family, and somebody would take something like that and turn it like so negative. Yeah. It's just really sad.
Yeah. Yep. So, so they ended up liking me. Why?
Well, duh.
I mean, how you doing? No, but they ended up liking me, and I loved them. I just felt really connected to her, and you know, obviously, I want to like. It's for him too, but obviously, as a woman, like I know what it's like.
I'm sure your heart went out to her.
Yeah,
you could relate in a way, like you know, you empathize and you put yourself in that situation.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And so I just kind of really was just drawn to them, and we kind of hit it off. And so then we ended up going through, I ended up going to see their doctor in the state that they live in.
Okay.
And then I got approval from my doctor, which I did prior to being set up with them. They had to make sure that, you know, all of my parts were working and everything was good. And everything was good under the hood. And so then they flew me out to see their infertility doctor because at the time you could not do a transfer here in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
And so you could be a surrogate, you could hire a surrogate, but it was really hard to do the whole process here in Minnesota.
Wow.
And so I flew to their state.
So there's state laws, there's state rules.
Every state is different. Yeah. Every state is different. And so, in fact, we ended up delivering at North Memorial in Robbinsdale, and I was the first surrogate there.
Oh.
So that my doctor knew of. So that was crazy. But so went there. They did a bunch of testing, put me on a bunch of medications to basically trick my body into thinking that it was pregnant, which included shots every day in my stomach, in my, like the back hip kind of area. And then I also had to, boys, cover your ears. I did a vaginal pill as well to help thicken the uterus lining. Because during when you're getting, like you talked about in our last episode, like it's really hard to get pregnant even when you're healthy.
Surprisingly.
Which I had no clue. And so, which brought even a more appreciation to like the process of getting pregnant, and so I was like, dang. And so, they were trying to trick my body into thinking it was pregnant, thickening that uterine wall. At the same time, she was taking all of the shots you were taking to get, because she still had her ovaries. Eggs. Yep. So she had her ovaries, and so that she was getting her eggs ready.
Yeah.
And then there are two types of surrogates, I guess. We have the AI, which is artificial insemination, which is where the surrogate...
Turkey baster.
Yes. It is the turkey baster. I didn't use yours. No, I did not do AI. I feel like... I don't know. It was not a big decision for me to make, but it's a big decision. Yeah. But I was like, I don't know if I could use my own eggs. Kudos to women who can, but I was like, I don't want to be that attached to these children. And so I did IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, which is where we used her eggs, his sperm. They created the embryos.
So you were just the oven.
I was just the oven. And then they inseminated. They had I think their doctor may have wanted to do 3. I can't remember, but my doctor was like max 2.
Okay.
And so we did 2 embryos. I went there to have I did all of my medicine here in Minnesota, and then I went there for the insemination. And and it was crazy because one of the embryos got stuck in the tube. So it's like a catheter kind of that they inseminate you with. And then when they're done, you're kind of like up there with your legs spread wide open.
There's like I don't even want to say decency, but it's like there's nothing sweet and romantic and nice about having babies when you have issues. Yeah. Or when you're helping somebody who has issues. It's like everybody and their mother is up in there.
Yep.
Everybody's looking at everything. All of your lady parts are exposed to the world.
Yeah.
And they're like, by the way, lay here with your legs open.
I literally sat there with my legs wide open in front of this woman that I'd met just a couple months ago.
We're besties.
And the dad, I was like, you should be in here. Like, these are your kids, you know. But
by the way, it's my vagina. I'm so sorry.
But he was like, oh, I'll wait in the waiting room. So he waited in the waiting room.
Poor guy's having nightmares.
I know. My mom came with to be my support system. And so she sat in the waiting room with him. So that was nice. But so I sat there with my legs like spread open. And they were like, they checked the catheter to make sure that the embryos went all the way through, and they were like, oh my gosh, there's an embryo in the catheter still. And so they're like, we're going to re-inseminate you with this. And then we were like, okay, that one's not going to make it, like, you know. And it was crazy because I remember afterwards they were like, okay, just sit here for a minute, and then like you can go and like use the restroom. And I like peed for 10 minutes.
That was so stressful, I'm sure.
It was just like, oh my God, like 10 minutes. It was
like anxiety urination.
Seriously. And I remember sitting in the bathroom, like literally praying, like almost out loud, like, God, please don't let them fall out.
Yeah, don't let the boys fall out.
Do not let them fall out. Do not let them fall out. Do not let them fall out.
Oh my God. Let's hope we had the Michael Phelps of the swimmers.
I know.
Hurry, because I'm about to release. You better get to your destination.
I hope my legs were propped up high enough. Oh but I remember like thinking like, oh my gosh, what are the mom and dad thinking? Like I'm in here for 10 minutes peeing like a racehorse. And I'm like, they're
like,
probably
great,
going,
you just dropped our babies.
I know. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was on like bed rest in a hotel for a few days before I flew home. And then I had a blood test to tell me like if I was pregnant or like what my number. They check your HCG numbers.
Yeah.
And then that kind of tells you if you're pregnant, and then you want the HCG numbers to double. Is that right? Like they want them to go up basically, and that means that your body has accepted the insemination and that the babies are growing. Babies are growing at a good rate if they're going up. If you kind of stay the same or they go lower, then you know that you're most likely not pregnant. And so they called me with my HCG numbers, which basically said if I'm pregnant or not, because it was prior to being able to like pee on a stick.
Okay.
And they called me and they're like, hi, is this Deborah? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, we're calling with your HCG levels. And I'm like, hold on. Did you call mom or dad yet? And they were like, no. And I'm like, you need to call them and they can tell me. This is their pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like you tell them and then they can share the news with me. That was very important to me to help keep that mental distance between being attached to them. Yep. And so she called me and she's like, oh my God, you're pregnant. And I'm like, you are? Like, congratulations. I'm so excited for you, right? And then we found out the HCG levels were doubling really quickly. And so we were like, okay, the odds of you having having twins right now is like we're thinking that's where you're going. Because the numbers were growing so rapidly because I was getting tested like every couple days.
Okay. Were you already back in Minnesota at this point?
I was back in Minnesota. Yep. I stayed in Chicago after the insemination for like just a handful of days, not even a week.
Okay.
Again, just staying in a hotel, taking it easy, just letting my body kind of do its thing. And then flew back to Minnesota, did all of the rest of the stuff here. Never went back to Chicago for anything.
Did they come here for appointments?
Yes. So once we found out they were having twins, it was a high risk pregnancy, number one, because it was a surrogacy, and number two, because it was twins. And pretty much every Friday, I think we had a doctor's appointment, and mom came in for every appointment. Aww. And we'd go get our nails done. Like she would pay for me to get my toenails done because, I couldn't bend over. I had my own dining room table,
Yeah, I had twins.
You're ginormous.
Yeah.
And she took, really great care of me. And she would call, my mom and say, like, how's Deborah doing? And my mom would be on, like, she'd ask me, and I wouldn't tell her because I'm like, I'm not going to complain about having morning sickness because that's what I signed up for.
Right.
I'm not going to complain about all the aches and
Plus,
pains because that's what I signed up for.
I'm sure she would love to be able to have the morning sickness.
Right.
She would love to be able to experience all those things.
So the last thing I wanted to do was like talk about it, you know? And so my mom told her. And it was funny because my mom was like, yeah, she's
Thanks,
not.
Mom.
I know. Thank you, Mother. But my mom's like, yeah, she's not sleeping well. And then the next day she like sent me a pregnancy pillow. Or like, oh, she's really nauseous. The next day I had like a box of chocolate and like things that would help with morning sickness. And like, I mean, she was so amazing. And so that was pretty cool. I just felt really connected with her. And I just wanted her to, and then we found out what they were having because they came in, you know, they saw the ultrasound. And the dad wasn't able to come down. He was at work. And so she came and the doctor was like, okay, I'm going to write it on a piece of paper and you can go home and open it. And then the mom was like, well, Deborah, do you want to? And I'm like, no, you call and tell me. Again, these are your babies. And so she called me and said they were boys and all the fun things. And yeah, so that was kind of my journey. And then so we had the insemination around late 2005. And then I delivered them in mid 2006. And it was funny because they were going to do like they did an amniocentesis, which is where they stick a needle like 5 feet long into your stomach. And
for the record, I'm 5'2". I'm pretty sure the needle is not 5 feet long.
Yes, it was.
It just visually looks like
it's 5 feet. 5 feet. Have Kathy stand up. That's how big it was. Right in the
Kathy
stomach.
coming at you.
Yeah. I was like, no.
Oh my gosh.
No, but then they stabbed the
Is that
abdomen.
because they requested it or you did?
The doctor did because we had a birth. Part of being a surrogate is you come up with a birth plan.
Okay.
And so what are we going to do? How are we going to have these babies? We knew we were going to do like a C-section because it was less risky for the babies.
Okay.
To do a C-section with twins. And then also it kind of would guarantee then that mom and dad were there during delivery
So
rather than just waiting for my water to break. So we scheduled it for a day, May 31st, and they came down like the day before or 2 days. Nope, the day before. And then we got the results that night that said, no, the lungs of one of the boys, I think, wasn't developed yet. So they were like, we're going to wait a little while before we do the C-section. And so the mom was like, oh my gosh, that's okay. Like, we'll come down. Like, I'll come down and then we'll just get a hotel and like just pamper ourselves, you know. And that night we went out to dinner. I think both of their moms and dads might have come down. I can't recall. That day. And so it was just kind of like, we were all just kind of disappointed. You know, we thought this was going to happen. And we went to Olive Garden and then we dropped them off at their hotel. And I remember getting a bloody nose and it would not stop. And we literally, like, we could not get my bloody nose to stop. No matter what we tried, it would not stop.
That's strange.
And, well, my iron was so low because you're pregnant with, you know, twins and they're taking everything.
They suck the life out of you, yes.
They do. And so my mom's like, we need to get you to the ER. My mom used to be a nurse, and she's like, we need to get you into the doctor. Like, we need to get this under control. Like, you're already anemic, and you're losing all this blood. And so we get to the doctor's office, and they get the bloody nose under control. And mom and dad flew out the next morning, which was May 31st. They flew out in the morning back to Chicago.
Back home.
And in the morning, I wake up. And I couldn't even keep water down. I was so nauseous. And I didn't have any contractions that I remember. Like, they weren't like when I had Hannah.
Like traditional.
Yep. And so they're like, are you having contractions? And I'm like, no, I'm just so nauseous. I can't keep. I was literally on the floor in the bathroom. And my doctor called in like a prescription. My mom went and got it to help me stay like hydrated and not nauseous. And I just threw everything up. And so the doctor's like, you need to get her in. You know, because she's going to get dehydrated, which is not good for the kids.
No.
And so we get to the hospital. They hook me up to a monitor, and I'm having contractions like crazy. But I'm so big, I don't feel them. And so I'm like,
I can relate.
My gosh. And so my mom called the mom and was like, Deborah's in labor. And she's like, we just landed. back home. And so they could not get a flight back. So they got right in a car, started driving back to Minnesota. And my doctor's like, we can't wait anymore. Like, the heart rates are not doing the best. We need to get these kids out. And so my mom went in with me, and we did a C-section. But my doctor was amazing, and my mom had a camera, and the doctor was like, get in here. Like, just lean over, get pictures of these kids. So there was one where my stomach.
So they missed the actual birth?
They did.
Okay.
But my mom, like, took so many pictures of them, like, I mean, gruesome pictures, but, and then.
It's life.
I mean, we just couldn't wait for the sake of the kids. But, yeah. And then I had them, and I was like, there you go. Good luck with that. Have fun. I did come up in the part of the birth plan was I did not want to be in the same room as the babies. I never wanted to hear them cry.
Okay. Just in case.
Yeah, because I knew that with Hannah, I was attached the second I heard her cry. It was like, oh my gosh. Like when you have a baby, like you just wait for them to cry.
Yes.
You're just like, please cry, please cry. And so when they cry, you're like, oh, and then like these hormones kick in and all these things. And I'm like, I don't want any of that.
Now, did you pump for them?
I did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Enough for like what is it, colostrum?
Mm-hmm. So you didn't actually breastfeed them?
No. Mm-mm. No.
Did you see how disgusted your face looked right then?
No, these were not my kids.
This is a business transaction.
I was like, not doing that part. Sorry.
Listen, it's not fun breastfeeding twins. I will tell you that right now.
I couldn't imagine doing it for twins. Yeah.
And premature. So they had to eat every 3 hours, regardless.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yes.
No, we definitely did not do that.
It was super fun.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's awesome though that they were born healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of them was in the ice, like NICU or whatever, for his lungs. Because the lungs,
how long?
I don't remember. I drowned it all out. I did. I drowned it all.
You're like,
out.
I was so scarred for life.
I don't recall. It's funny because I remember like when even would go to Target and I'd be pregnant and I'd have Hannah and they're like, oh, you're gonna be like a big sister, and she's like, oh no, they're so and so's. My mom's not keeping them. Like no, because I explained it to her like I'm having these babies. They are not your siblings. They're no part in any way, shape, or form part of me.
Yeah.
And so they're
not.
How
did she take it though?
Oh, she was just happy. I told her that they had that the mom had a broken tummy, and that she couldn't have kids anymore, and couldn't have babies, and so they were going to put the babies in my tummy, and then I would have them. And so there was a very, very strong, a lot of people say, well, weren't you attached? And I wasn't. I can literally say to the hand of God, I was never attached to these kids because I was very much like, this is for them.
You kept it very transactional.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, it sounded like you cared for the mom.
Yeah.
But you kept the whole process very transactional.
Yeah, very professional, very much like this is for you. These are not mine. There's no attachment here. And it's weird to say that because you see them growing. You see your body changing. You're laying in the bathtub and you're literally going like this because they're moving all over the place. But I never felt attached to them in a way where I felt attached in the sense of keeping them safe and healthy, but never like they were a part of me ever. I never felt that. Yeah, I never, because you hear about surrogates who want to keep the kids and stuff after they have them. I very much did not. I was very much like, there you go.
So how did you feel postpartum though?
So not attached to them.
Because you didn't, but I mean like it's not like you brought home fruits of your labor. It's not like you had your reward. It's not like you were able to, look at these faces and, not, I feel like when you look at the baby's face, it kind of drowns out any of the stuff that you went through.
Yeah.
And you didn't have that.
No.
Do you feel like you had any depression or anything from it?
No, I don't think so.
Your body just healed and went about its business.
Healed and went about its way. I was very much, I think that also being a surrogate and going through a center, they been through this a few times. Yeah. And so they had me go to a support group every month for the Midwest, Minnesota, like Midwest states. And so people
during the whole pregnancy?
During the entire before I was even matched.
Okay.
All the way through like a couple months after I had them. So I had support group from people who've been going through it, who've been through it, and who are looking to go through it. Now I met surrogates during that process who all they talked about was financial things, or all they did was complain about being pregnant. And that wasn't a thing to me. I never wanted, this was something I signed up for. I'm not going to complain about something that I signed up for.
Well, it sounds like they went into it for all the wrong reasons then.
Yeah, I think so. Not to put words in their mouths, but I think so. But I mean, I just didn't feel attached. And then, when you're pregnant with your own kid too, you think of names, you think about what they're going to look like. You go to the Target and all the baby stores and pick out clothes and like decorations for the baby room. I didn't do any of that.
Which is probably kind of good.
Yeah. It was just like, I never felt attached to them. And it was funny because I see them once in a while. And I talk to them at least their birthdays, if not more. Like I just talked to mom. Oh, they know. And they knew the whole time. Like I remember them calling me when they were little and they'd be like, Deborah, like what did you crave with me? Like, what did I want to eat? And I'm like, oh, you wanted, so-and-so, you wanted Mexican all the time. And so you wanted Chinese, like just to like get them to, but.
Which is funny because my kids, all three of my kids, especially the two older ones that were twins, they always ask how it was to have them both in there and were they different and how did I know the difference between baby A and baby B and stuff like that.
Did you know?
Yes.
I did
100%.
Not. Did you really?
But then again, I've watched them out. So their personalities match up exactly how their personalities were in my stomach.
Okay, got it.
Whereas you didn't have the flip side of watching their personalities outside.
Right.
I bet I can probably stake money on this. If you had that, then you'd be like, yep, you were baby A, you were baby B, for sure, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
I can guarantee it. But it's the same even when you have a single. My youngest, she's exactly out of the stomach as she was inside the stomach. Like, firecracker. But I'm sure it's the same with your two.
Yeah.
Yeah. How funny. That's really cool, though, that they call you to ask you those questions.
Oh, yeah.
And that the mom is at least open and it wasn't like this hidden secret.
And sometimes that's one of the things in the questionnaires that they ask. Do you want a relationship with these babies after? And for me, I was like, I just want to know they're doing well. A picture once a year. And it's all contractual. It's all in a contract. I don't even know if now I don't even think I have the contract anymore. But, because they're going to be 18 this year. Wow. So it's like, I don't even know I don't remember what the things were. But like I talked to the mom, like I said, they're not going to be 18 until like, late May. And, I talked to the mom like a week ago for like an hour and a half, just catching up what they're going to do for, they're graduating from high school, what they're going to do for college and, all the things. And when I see them, even when I saw them, because when they were like babies, I remember me and my mom flew out to their state and like went to see them. And we went to the park and I saw them and I never was like, oh my God, I carried you. I never felt like I carried them. My body, like, literally, emotionally, they say, like, when you have trauma, like, you block it out. I think that's what happened. Because I don't remember a lot of things.
They scarred your uterus.
They did.
I have uterus trauma.
I know.
Oh, my God.
But, like, even now, like, I see them, and it's, like, it's hard to believe it's been 18 years that I've gone through that process. But I've never looked at them and been like, oh, my gosh, I carried you. Never.
Which is probably a better thing mentally for you.
I think so. I think
and
my
for
mind.
The mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like then she's not struggling with that and then she's open to have that relationship with you instead of, on pins and needles of, should I say this? Should I not say this? How are you going to react? So it sounded like it was a great match from the get-go.
Yeah, and I very much am like, they're your kids. Do what you want. Like, I have no say in that. I don't care what you do.
You're like, thank God.
I always laugh that God knew what he was doing when he gave me girls.
Oh
I think we talked about this during one of our first episodes. I was not meant to like have my own sons.
Really?
No, I am not a boy mom.
Oh my gosh.
So it's nice to see. I think that also helps in that aspect. But, I love her. I have the utmost respect for her. I love the boys. I do. I love them, but not as in any way, shape, or form like they're mine. But I love them like they're my friends' kids.
Oh,
and so I want what's best for them. Like I want what's best for your kids. They're not mine, but I love them. I love Bella and Matthew, and I would not, but I don't like feel like they're mine, and that's how I feel about them.
Yeah, and just think and that was not to sound like you're old, but that was a long time ago.
It was.
And technology has advanced so much, but just think of all of the things that people have come up with to help people along the way, like have a family, all these things. And I used to, it was really interesting because when I was trying and I was like the friend that couldn't have kids, and I kept losing babies, and I kept thinking, oh my gosh, it was such a mental mind F, if you will, because I kept thinking, am I relying on science too much instead of God to have this child? Because what if it's not meant to be and I'm forcing it? And I know that's like, I think some questions you just can't ask yourself. So, it's just like, is this happening because I'm turning to science too much? But then I sit there and I think, look at all of the things that have come up. Like you can take an egg and a sperm from somebody else, mix it all up and stick it in you for you to bake for somebody.
Yeah.
And look at what you did for them.
I remember an aunt telling me, she said that maybe I was playing God. That maybe this mom wasn't supposed to have more kids, right? And my answer to that is, and to you too, and anyone out there that's like going through a process like this, is that if you had cancer, are you then not going to go to chemotherapy to get better and trust the sciences that God, in a way, created for all of us?
I think it's such a hard...
Or if you have diabetes, are you not going to like take insulin because maybe God wanted you to die of cancer? Maybe God wanted you to have diabetes and not get better and lose a leg or whatever. I
think those questions you could what if and ask yourself to death.
Yeah.
Because I went through that. And I'm sure that person that you had these babies for went through that. She's like, I lost my uterus. Is this a sign from God that I'm not supposed to have more kids? Oh, wait, but yet...
If God didn't want her,
way,
yeah,
and it's like I went back and forth thinking, well, God made these people with these amazing brains to come up with these things.
Right.
You're never gonna know what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? You're never gonna know. Did he help put these ideas in these people's minds to help people,
right?
Or are they in fact playing God themselves? I have no clue,
yeah.
And I think nobody's ever gonna know.
I think at the time. It's been so long, but I feel like at the time, the success rate for surrogacy was like in the 10% of in vitro fertilization, like IVFs worked, right? And so I looked at if God didn't want her to have kids, it wouldn't have worked. I mean, look at the embryo that got stuck in the tube, in the catheter, and he still made it. I mean, God 18. Had a plan for these children and for her and the dad.
Yeah.
That I believe that. That's what I believe. That's my female truth on it.
It's difficult, and you can sit here and go back and forth all you want. Like a person can. Like if you're struggling and you're going through something and you're like, do I do this or not? Number one, everybody's asked these questions. Am I like, is this a sign that I'm not supposed to be doing this? Is this a sign that I'm not supposed to have more babies? Is it a sign? And it's like, well, you will kill yourself with anxiety trying to figure out all of those questions. Mm-hmm. And I think it just adds extra torment where it's not needed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's difficult. But what I do know is I think that's amazing what you did. And the mom is probably eternally grateful. Not to speak for her, I've never met her, but I mean, could you imagine? I can guarantee there wasn't a time that she looked at those babies and was like, thank God for this woman that gave up more than 9 months, because you had to go through the vetting process.
Right.
You know, basically a year of her life, she gave up, even though her own child was really young. Mm-hmm. And I have these 2 miracles because of this. I mean, I can almost guarantee that at some point she probably thought something about that.
Well, it was the best decision I ever made besides having my own. Oh. I'd do it all over. I mean, it was brutal. That's why I drowned out a lot of the pain and all the things. But, you know. Having
kids is brutal. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
I still have a hemorrhoid from 15 years ago.
Oh, girl, trust me, I know.
Oh, my God.
Don't forget to follow for more things hemorrhoids. We keep promising it. We better put that in the playlist somewhere.
Let me take notes here. Episode 8, hemorrhoids. Seriously, though.
Yeah, like, I know. It's never going away. I
actually asked, the gift that keeps on giving forever.
I asked my doctor, I was like, can we get rid of this hemorrhoid? And she said, if you get rid of those, you can have bowel issues for the rest of your life.
What?
Yeah. I was like, we're leaving it alone then. It's not bothersome. God. So it's just whatever.
My kids, they're like, oh, Mom, didn't I give you that thing that sticks out of your butt? I'm like, okay, yeah, let's call it that.
Yeah, there you go. It's a thing.
Can't you just stick it back in?
Nope. But I actually looked into getting it removed, and my doctor was like, no. It's a cosmetic thing, number 1. And number 2,
okay, you think it's
you're going to have number 2 issues. So I was like, I don't want to have bowel issues. I'm good. We'll leave it alone. It's I always say that I was also very blessed with not having those stretch marks. And so
I have them all.
Do you? I mean, right? And I heard that's a hereditary thing, but so I just look at all of the things that happened, like my C-section scar that you can barely see, but still, it's just part of the process, and it's just the beauty mark of the. And so the hemorrhoids is a beauty mark of some sort.
I'll try to remember that. That sucker flares up. It's just my beauty mark.
It's just my beauty mark.
It's no big deal.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I've never met somebody who was a surrogate until you. But I think that's an awesome gift that you gave this family, and it sounds like they're forever thankful. You're forever thankful for the experience and the relationship that you were able to build with it. Mm-hmm. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of She Speaks. And just remember, your voice matters.
Bye. Till next time.